Nathan Briggs was a career soldier, a man forged by 2 decades of service and sacrifice. At home, he was a husband to Becky and father to a quiet life he believed was waiting for him each time he returned from war. But behind the walls of his family house, betrayal was already taking root, through a wife who had grown restless, a lover who saw opportunity, and a slick broker who thrived on exploiting trust. What began as loyalty and love would soon unravel into fraud, deceit, and a fight for justice that Nathan never saw coming. The desert air in Kandahar always carried dust, fine grains that clung to your skin, your clothes, your lungs. That morning, it was clinging to Nathan's laptop too. He brushed at the keyboard with calloused fingers, but the dust wasn't what stole his breath. It was the subject line staring back at him, "Let's be adults about this." He clicked. 3 sentences. 13 years of marriage condensed into 3 hollow lines. Becky had filed for divorce. She had emptied their joint account. She had already moved Jeremy, her new boyfriend, into their house in Spokane. The email ended with a PDF attachment, cold, legal, impersonal. A relationship that had survived deployments, funerals, and lean years ended not with a fight, not even with a tearful goodbye, but with paperwork in his inbox. Nathan read it twice, not because he didn't understand, but because he needed to make sure the words were real. Then he closed the laptop, walked to the communal shower, turned the water on, and stood there until his skin prickled from the heat. No tears, no shouting, just a soldier performing the ritual of keeping himself functional. Back at his bunk, the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, the air thick with the smell of sweat, canvas, and machine oil. Nathan typed a single-word reply, "Understood." No argument, no begging, no threats. Just one word. It was the soldier's code, short, precise, final. Wilson, his bunkmate, didn't even look up from the book he was reading when he asked, "You good, man?" Nathan kept his voice flat. "Yeah. Just some stuff back home." Wilson nodded once, turning the page. Soldiers knew when to leave a man's silence untouched. But inside, Nathan's silence wasn't emptiness. It was pressure. Pressure building with every heartbeat, pushing grief into something colder. He wasn't surprised. Not really. 4 months before deployment, Becky had been slipping away in small, almost invisible ways. She'd stopped asking about his day. Started working late at the dental office, always with vague excuses. She went to the gym 3 times a week but never broke a sweat. New clothes. New friends Nathan never met. New passwords on her phone. He hadn't confronted her. That wasn't his way. He didn't rifle through her messages or follow her around like some jealous kid. But he wasn't blind either. He saw the drift, the rehearsed smiles, the way her eyes looked past him. So he had done what soldiers do best, prepared. Quietly, without fanfare, Nathan had moved important documents into a storage unit across town, the birth certificate, the marriage license, the deed to their house. He opened a separate bank account under a different institution and bled a trickle of his pay there, slow enough Becky wouldn't notice. He tucked away heirlooms, his grandfather's watch, his mother's old silver, things that mattered more than money. When Becky hugged him at the airport the night before his deployment, she'd said, "Stay safe, okay?" Her arms felt stiff, her eyes dry. She wasn't saying goodbye to a husband heading to war, she was saying goodbye to a coworker she barely knew. That memory now cut deeper than the email. As Nathan sat in his bunk, the words of his late father echoed in his head, "Don't start fights. But if one comes to you, finish it." Becky thought she'd ended the marriage with 3 sentences and a forged smile. What she didn't know was that Nathan wasn't starting this fight. But he damn sure intended to finish it. Looking back, Nathan could see it clearly now, how betrayal never arrives with a sudden crash. It seeps in quietly, like a draft through a crack in the wall, until the whole house feels cold. 6 months before deployment, things had shifted in small but undeniable ways. Becky stopped asking about his day. Their conversations, once filled with the trivial warmth of a shared life, what to cook for dinner, which neighbor planted new flowers, whether the Seahawks had a shot that year, had gone thin, transactional. She'd talk about bills, about schedules, about groceries. Never about them. The dental office became her excuse. "We're slammed right now," she'd say, keys jingling in her hand as she rushed out the door, lipstick freshly applied. Nathan knew the office wasn't open that late, but he let it slide. Soldiers learn to pick their battles. The gym membership came next. 3 nights a week, Becky left in leggings and bright new sneakers, claiming she was getting healthy. Yet when Nathan glanced at her shoes in the laundry room, the soles were spotless. No scuffs, no sweat stains. New clothes followed, stylish in a way she'd never cared about before. Dresses, fitted jackets, heels. She brushed off his compliments with vague shrugs. Her phone became a fortress, new lock screens, notifications hidden, a password he didn't know. She carried it everywhere, even to the bathroom. Nathan noticed. He always noticed. But he didn't confront her. That wasn't who he was. His father had taught him, think before you speak, be sure before you act. In combat, suspicion without proof could get men killed. At home, it could kill a marriage. So Nathan stayed quiet, filing details away like intelligence reports. He still remembered the airport, the harsh fluorescence, the bitter coffee, the smell of jet fuel lingering as he kissed her goodbye before boarding the plane to Kandahar. Her hug had been stiff, her eyes dry, her voice flat. "Stay safe," she said, like she was signing off an email. Not a wife sending her husband into war. A colleague wrapping up a shift. Even then, part of him had known. But another part, the stubborn soldier's heart, had hoped he was wrong. That hope kept him from asking questions. It kept him from prying into her messages or driving past the dental office late at night. But it also made him prepare. Like a man stringing up sandbags before the storm, Nathan had made quiet moves, documents locked away, separate bank account, heirlooms hidden. Because his gut told him the storm was coming. And in war and in marriage, you learn to trust your gut. He thought about her words one night, back in 2019, when she said, "I didn't sign up to be a military wife. I'm tired of being alone all the time." At the time, Nathan understood. He did. The army was his calling, his only true home. But looking back now, he realized Becky hadn't just been lonely, she'd been restless, resentful, waiting for an exit. And in the desert, staring at the glow of his laptop screen, Nathan realized she'd finally found it. Preparation had always been second nature to Nathan. In the army, survival wasn't luck, it was planning. You never went out on patrol without rehearsing scenarios, ambush from the left, sniper from above, IED underfoot. Every contingency had a countermeasure. Life back home, Nathan realized, wasn't all that different. Months before deployment, when Becky's behavior started shifting from distance to secrecy, Nathan didn't rage. He didn't plead. He simply began preparing. First, the documents. On a rainy Tuesday, while Becky was at the gym, Nathan drove across Spokane with a plain cardboard box in the trunk. Inside were the irreplaceables, his birth certificate, their marriage license, the deed to the house. The house had been purchased through the VA loan in his name, though he'd added Becky's later, a gesture of trust. That paperwork, along with his military benefit files, went into a rented storage unit on the far side of town. Next came the heirlooms. His grandfather's pocket watch, scratched but still ticking after decades. His mother's silver, tarnished but full of memory. He wrapped them in old shirts, tucked them into a duffel, and stashed them in the same unit. Money was trickier. If Becky noticed funds missing, the questions would start. So Nathan siphoned carefully. A sliver of each paycheck, nothing large enough to set off alarms, redirected into a new account at a different bank. Quiet accumulation, slow but steady. Enough to give him footing if everything collapsed. It wasn't paranoia. It was discipline. Soldiers called it redundancy, 2 radios, 2 maps, 2 routes of escape. If one system failed, another kept you alive. Becky, of course, noticed none of it. She was too busy curating her new life, new clothes, new friends, new lies. One night, she came home after midnight. Nathan was sitting at the kitchen table in the dark, boots on, hands folded. "You okay?" he asked, keeping his voice calm. "Work ran late," she said quickly, dropping her bag. Then Melissa wanted to grab a drink. Melissa, again. The mysterious friend Nathan had never met, whose name popped up more often than seemed real. "Melissa," Nathan repeated. Just the name, nothing else. Becky's eyes flickered. She hated silence, hated when words had to carry their own weight. "Yeah. Melissa," she said, forcing a smile. "Don't look at me like that." I'm not looking at you like anything. She turned away, muttering, You never understand. That was the last time Nathan tried asking. After that, he stuck to his father's advice, be sure before you act. When deployment orders came through, Becky didn't cry. She didn't cling. At the airport, she hugged him like a woman hugging a stranger she'd known once, long ago. Stay safe, she said. Her eyes were dry. Nathan boarded the plane with his rucksack heavy on his shoulders, his chest heavier still. But unlike most soldiers heading into combat, he wasn't worried about the battlefield. He was worried about what was waiting for him back home. And quietly, methodically, he had already prepared for the worst. It happened 2 weeks later. Kandahar's mess hall was a blur of noise, forks scraping on metal trays, the low thrum of conversations, the occasional burst of laughter from a table of younger guys. Nathan was halfway through lukewarm eggs when his phone buzzed. A notification. Bank alert. He opened the app, the weak Wi-Fi struggling for seconds that felt like hours. Then the numbers appeared. His stomach turned to stone. $88,500 withdrawn. Their joint account, nearly drained, leaving only $22.37. The savings account they'd built together, $47,000, was gone. Completely transferred to an account Nathan didn't recognize. His fork clattered against the tray. For a long moment, all he heard was the roar of blood in his ears. Murphy, sitting across from him, glanced up. Bad news. Nathan forced a shrug. Nah. Just some account stuff. But inside, something cracked. This wasn't just Becky leaving him. This was Becky gutting him. That night, Nathan used the base's phone center, the fluorescent lights flickering overhead, the hum of soldiers calling wives and kids around him. He called the bank. The clerk's voice was polite, clinical. Yes, Mrs. Briggs had initiated the transfers. Yes, the withdrawals began the day after his deployment. Small amounts at first, then larger ones. Yes, the most recent was nearly 90 grand. Nathan ended the call and stood in the hallway, staring at the cinderblock wall. Around him, men laughed into phones, whispered reassurances to their children, murmured soft I love yous into static-filled connections. Normal life unfolding in voices carried across oceans. And Nathan stood silent in the middle of it, his life unraveling 3,000 miles away. That's when Wilson found him. Alvarez said you looked like you'd seen a ghost at dinner, Wilson said, leaning against the wall. What's up? Nathan hesitated. He wasn't one to share. But Wilson had once pulled him out of a bad corner in Kandahar, dragging him through gunfire after an IED blast. If anyone had earned a straight answer, it was him. My wife, Nathan said finally. She emptied our accounts. Moved her boyfriend into the house. Sent me divorce papers last week. Wilson didn't flinch, didn't say I'm sorry or you'll get through it. Instead, he asked the only question that mattered. What's your plan? Nathan exhaled slowly. Not sure yet. Wilson nodded. Let me know if you need anything. Then he walked away, leaving Nathan with the silence he needed. That night, sleep wouldn't come. Nathan lay in his bunk, staring at the ceiling, the whir of the fan above him syncing with the pounding of his pulse. Finally, he sat up, pulled out his laptop, and logged into their home security system. The cameras blinked to life. And what he saw turned his blood cold. Jeremy. The stranger who now lived in his house. Wearing Nathan's Seahawks sweatshirt. Drinking from Nathan's coffee mug. Walking Nathan's dog like he belonged there. Becky laughing in the kitchen Nathan had renovated with his own hands. It wasn't rage Nathan felt. Rage burned hot and short. This was colder. Clearer. The kind of focus that came before a mission. Becky thought she had gutted him. But she didn't understand who she was dealing with. Nathan wasn't a man who started fights. But he had made a career out of finishing them. Nathan stopped eating with the others. He stopped calling home. He stopped speaking Becky's name. From the outside, he was just another soldier grinding through the deployment, lean, quiet, reliable. The kind of man who'd volunteer for the worst shifts without complaint. The kind of man nobody worried about, because he didn't talk about his problems. But inside, Nathan was sharpening. Every night after patrol, While the others played cards or smoked, he sat alone with his laptop. Not scrolling Facebook. Not watching movies. He was gathering intelligence. The home cameras became his reconnaissance. He watched the angles of Becky's smile, the way she leaned toward Jeremy at the kitchen counter. He logged timestamps, when Jeremy came, when he left, when he stayed. He noted which of his belongings Jeremy had claimed, his sweatshirt, his recliner, even his toolbox in the garage. Nathan built a profile the way he would of an insurgent target: habits, vulnerabilities, patterns. Jeremy drove Becky's car more often than she did. He smoked on the porch around 11 p.m. sharp. He never locked the garage door. And Becky, she was careless. Reckless. She posted pictures online, dinners out, wine glasses clinking, smiles wide. She tagged restaurants, checked into hotels, even shared a photo of the backyard with Nathan's old grill in the frame. A map of their lives, handed to him for free. Nathan didn't act yet. He wasn't ready. He told himself what his father had told him before his first deployment: never rush. Never swing wild. Measure twice, cut once. So Nathan measured. Every day, every detail. The money she had stolen could be rebuilt. The house could be taken back. But trust. That was gone forever. And when trust died, something else was born in its place. Resolve. Nathan wasn't going to confront her with tears or pleas. He wasn't going to demand explanations she'd never give honestly. No. When his boots hit American soil again, Becky and Jeremy would learn a truth they had forgotten. Some men break when betrayed. But some men endure. And when they endure long enough, they don't just come back. They come back changed. Colder. Smarter. Deadlier. And Nathan was coming home soon. Mail call was supposed to be a lifeline. Packages filled with jerky, socks, handwritten notes scented faintly of home. Soldiers clung to letters, folded, reread, tucked into helmets for luck. Nathan got none. Weeks passed. The younger guys teased him gently, "Come on, Briggs, wife too busy sending Hallmark cards to Jeremy." But they didn't know how close they were to the truth. Then, one evening, a brown envelope appeared in the stack. No return name, just his military address. The handwriting was neat, deliberate. He slit it open with his knife. Inside was a single sheet of paper. "You don't know me. My name's Clara. I work with your wife at the dental office. I thought you should know what's happening back home. Becky isn't who you think she is. She's been with Jeremy for months now. Everyone here knows. I'm sorry. I couldn't keep quiet anymore." Nathan sat very still, the paper trembling between his hands. Someone else had confirmed it. A stranger. Not gossip, not suspicion, not his gut screaming in the night. Proof. Clara. He didn't know her. He didn't care who she was. But she had done something no one else dared, told the truth. Over the next few weeks, more envelopes came. Clara's tone sharpened with each one. "She's telling people you don't care. That you'll never come back. That she deserves to be happy. Jeremy drives your truck now. I see them laughing in the parking lot before work. He kisses her like he owns her. I think she's planning to sell the house." Each letter landed like a strike to the chest. And yet, Nathan didn't crumble. The letters didn't break him. They clarified him. Now he had corroboration. Independent sources. Any doubt that lingered dissolved. Becky wasn't just lost, she was gone. Deliberately, ruthlessly gone. Wilson noticed the change. One night, as they cleaned their rifles under the humming fluorescents, he asked quietly, still thinking about her. Nathan shook his head. "No. I'm thinking about what comes after." Wilson studied him for a long moment. "Just don't do anything stupid, Briggs." Nathan gave a thin smile. "Stupid is acting without a plan. I've got a plan." He folded Clara's letters into his journal that night, tucking them between pages like classified documents. Not rage. Not grief. Evidence. Proof for the day he returned. And when that day came, Becky would discover a cruel irony. The man she thought she'd destroyed had only been rebuilt. Harder. Sharper. And waiting. The envelope came sandwiched in a bundle of supply manifests. Plain, official, with his name typed in block letters. Nathan already knew what it was before he slit it open with his blade. Divorce papers. Filed in Spokane County. Signed by Rebecca Briggs. Grounds, irreconcilable differences. He read them slowly, line by line. The demands were bold. Becky wanted the house. She wanted half of his pension, half of his benefits. She wanted the truck, the dog, even the damn silverware. And Jeremy's shadow was everywhere between the lines. A man who had stepped into another man's life and was now trying to claim it piece by piece. Nathan sat on his bunk, the hum of the generator in the distance, and let the words wash over him. Most men would have felt rage. Some would have wept. Nathan felt neither. Instead, he pulled his journal closer. He flipped past Clara's letters, past his notes on Becky's patterns, and began to write. Not an answer, not yet, but a record. Every lie. Every withdrawal. Every timeline. Every betrayal. He wrote it as carefully as he'd once written patrol reports, precise and detailed. A paper trail. Evidence. Because Nathan wasn't going to fight this war in Becky's court. He'd fight it in his own. That night, Wilson found him staring at the papers under the dim light. You gonna sign? Wilson asked. Nathan shook his head. Not yet. Why not? Nathan looked up, his eyes flat, calm. Because signatures end things. And this isn't ending. Not like this. Wilson didn't press. He just nodded, like a man recognizing the steel in another. The papers stayed in Nathan's footlocker, tucked beneath his folded uniforms. He touched them every few days, not as a wound, but as a reminder. Becky thought she'd already buried him, that the court system, the stolen money, and Jeremy's presence in his house had finished the job. What she didn't know was that she hadn't buried a corpse. She'd awakened something that didn't break. And when Nathan returned, she wouldn't be facing the man she had betrayed. She'd be facing the soldier she had created. By mid-tour, Nathan's days blurred into a cycle of patrols, dust, and the gnawing hum of betrayal in the back of his skull. The desert was hostile, but at least it was honest. Back home, the war was quieter, dirtier. The cameras became his lifeline. Late at night, in the dim glow of his bunk screen, he watched his own living room like a ghost haunting what was his. Jeremy's muddy boots by the door. Becky curled against him on the couch, laughing at shows Nathan used to love. His dog, Luna, bounding up to Jeremy with a wagging tail, unaware of betrayal. It should have shattered him. Instead, Nathan studied. He noticed patterns. Jeremy left the house at 6:45 sharp most mornings. Becky checked her phone compulsively during dinner. Neither of them remembered to close the blinds. He logged everything. Time stamps. Faces. Habits. Weaknesses. The journal became thicker, pages full of reconnaissance that no one but Nathan would ever understand. One night, he caught Becky on camera carrying boxes out of the garage, his boxes. The ones he hadn't hidden. Camping gear. Tools. A rifle case. She loaded them into Jeremy's truck like they were hers to give. Nathan didn't shout. Didn't punch the wall. He just wrote it down. Later that week, another letter from Clara arrived. She's telling people you abandoned her. That she had no choice. Jeremy brags at the bar, says he's a better man than you. People are starting to believe them. Nathan folded the letter neatly and slid it into the journal. Abandoned. That was the story Becky was building. A soldier at war, painted as a deserter in his own home. Lies weaponized against him. But Nathan knew the truth. And truth, in his hands, wasn't just defense, it was ammunition. He closed the journal, slid it under his pillow, and lay back staring at the ceiling fan. In the distance, artillery thumped, a dull reminder of the war outside. But the real war was waiting for him stateside. And every day, Becky and Jeremy unknowingly gave him more fuel. When the plane finally carried him home, they wouldn't just see Nathan Briggs. They'd see the shadow they had created, watchful, patient, and ready. When the deployment ended, the C-17 dropped them into grey skies and cold wind. Families crowded the tarmac with flags and signs, kids bouncing on shoulders, wives crying as soldiers streamed down the ramp. Nathan walked among them, rucksack heavy, boots dragging on American soil again. Around him, reunions erupted, laughter, tears, embraces that seemed to dissolve months of fear. No one waited for him. He knew it before he even landed. Becky hadn't written in months. No welcome home banner, no tearful hug, no dog breaking free from a leash to sprint into his arms. Just silence. Wilson clapped him on the back. Need a ride? Nathan shook his head. I'll manage. He rented a car, plain and forgettable, and drove himself through Spokane's familiar streets. Past the grocery store where he and Becky used to argue about cereal brands. Past the diner where she'd once laughed so hard she spilled coffee down her blouse. Past the life that was no longer his. When he finally turned onto his street, his pulse slowed. Combat calm. His training slipped over him like armor. The house stood where he'd left it, but it wasn't his house anymore. A strange truck sat in the driveway. His porch light glowed, but not for him. Through the living room window, he saw Jeremy's shape, relaxed, casual, like he belonged there. Becky brushed past him in leggings, holding a wine glass, her laugh muffled through the glass. Luna barked once, tail wagging, but Becky silenced the dog with a sharp command. Nathan sat in the rental car, lights off, engine ticking in the cool night. Watching. The man who had once stormed compounds and dragged brothers through fire didn't move. Didn't rage. He just studied. Because this wasn't a reunion. This was reconnaissance. Becky thought the divorce papers had already written the ending. Jeremy thought the house, the money, and the woman were spoils he could keep. But Nathan hadn't come home to sign anything. He had come home to begin. Nathan didn't go to the door. Not yet. He knew better than to walk into hostile ground unprepared. Instead, he parked 2 blocks away, engine off, breath steady. His rucksack sat in the backseat, but what he carried now wasn't gear, it was patience. The next morning, while Becky and Jeremy left for work, Nathan made his first move. Not against them, but around them. He drove to the storage unit, the one he had rented months before deployment. The lock clicked open, and inside waited the pieces of his real life, the documents, the heirlooms, the cash he had siphoned away. Everything Becky hadn't touched. He spent hours inventorying, organizing. Each folder, each envelope, each artifact of his marriage-turned-battlefield went into order. Evidence, resources, leverage. By noon, he had what he needed to live invisible. An account untouched, an address Becky didn't know, cash enough to move without leaving tracks. That night, he didn't sleep in a motel or crash on Wilson's couch. He parked outside the house again. Watching. Jeremy grilled steaks on Nathan's old barbecue, flipping them with the same tongs Nathan had bought years ago. Becky leaned against the deck railing, sipping wine, her laugh drifting into the night air. Luna wagged at Jeremy's side, as if Nathan had never existed. Nathan wrote it all down in his journal. Not just times and actions now, but words. Snatches of their conversations through the open kitchen window. Jeremy complaining about work. Becky murmuring, he'll sign the papers soon. He has to. No anger. No shouting. Just quiet precision. By midnight, he had filled 3 new pages. Patterns emerging. Weaknesses showing. When he finally closed the notebook, Nathan's reflection stared back from the darkened car window, calm, steady, colder than the man who had once left for Kandahar. This wasn't about winning Becky back. That part of him was dead. This was about teaching them both that some wars aren't fought on battlefields. Some wars come home. And Nathan Briggs was only on his first move. The next morning, Nathan sat in a booth at a diner outside Spokane, waiting for James. His army buddy turned lawyer slid into the opposite seat, tossing a folder onto the table. Everything we talked about, James said. Bank records, deed copies, pension paperwork. And this, he tapped a page with 2 fingers. Refinance documents. With your name forged. Nathan leaned forward. His signature, only it wasn't. The middle initial was wrong. The strokes too heavy. Becky's hand trying to mimic what she didn't understand. She did this, Nathan muttered, though the truth was already clear. James nodded grimly. 3 months ago. Pulled $330,000 out of the house. Listed Jeremy as co-applicant. It's textbook fraud. For a moment, Nathan said nothing. The diner clattered around them, coffee cups hitting counters, the sizzle of bacon, muted chatter, but it all blurred into white noise. He thought of the house he had renovated with his own hands, the floors he'd sanded, the walls he'd painted, now leveraged into debt without his consent. What are my options? Nathan finally asked. James studied him. Depends what you want. You can go nuclear, press charges, take her down with Jeremy. Or, you play it smart, let her dig herself deeper. Either way, we need to move fast. Nathan exhaled slowly, the way he used to before stepping out of a helicopter into hostile territory. I want what's mine. And I want her to understand what consequences look like. James cracked a faint smile. Then here's what we do. The next day, Nathan walked into the bank with James at his side. He placed his military ID on the desk, alongside the original deed and VA loan paperwork. The loan officer, a middle-aged man with thinning hair, paled as Nathan compared his actual signature to the forgery on the refinance. This is fraud, Nathan said evenly, his voice calm but carrying the weight of command. And it's tied to my VA loan. Which means federal interest. The officer swallowed. We'll need to report this immediately. Good, Nathan replied. Because I already have. That night, Becky's number lit up his phone. He let it go to voicemail, then listened to her voice, high, strained, nervous. Nathan, we need to talk. The bank called about the house. What are you doing? If this is about the divorce, we can work it out like adults. Like adults. The same phrase she'd used when she ended 13 years of marriage in a 3-sentence email. Nathan deleted the voicemail without responding. This wasn't about working it out. This was about tightening the noose. Piece by piece. Move by move. 2 days later, James called with an update. The refinance funds are frozen. Bank's in full panic mode. But there's more. Nathan was standing by the window of his motel room, watching the rain streak across the glass. Go on. Half the money's already moved, about $14,600. Nathan's grip tightened on the phone. Where? There was a pause, as if James was weighing whether to tell him. Transfers to a name, Daniel Spencer. Not Jeremy. Someone else. Nathan frowned. Who the hell is Daniel Spencer? Real estate agent, James replied. Specializes in quick cash sales. And, his voice dropped lower, he's done deals with Jeremy before. Multiple. Same pattern. Woman going through divorce, military spouse, house sold way under market. Jeremy gets a cut, Spencer gets the sale. For a moment, Nathan said nothing. The pieces clicked into place like the clean mechanics of a rifle bolt. Becky's sudden push to downsize, Jeremy moving in fast, the forged refinance. This wasn't random betrayal, it was a system. A racket. How many others? Nathan asked, his voice low. James exhaled. At least 3 I found so far. Navy, Air Force, another Army guy. All deployed. All bled dry. Nathan stared out into the rain, jaw tight. What Becky had done was personal. But what Jeremy and Spencer were running, it was predatory. A machine feeding on military families who couldn't defend themselves from half a world away. That night, Becky texted him again. We need to talk. The bank is saying things I don't understand. Jeremy's furious. Please just call me. Nathan typed back only 3 words. Who is Spencer? The typing dots blinked. Then stopped. Then blinked again. Finally, it's not what you think. Nathan powered off his phone and set it face down. For the first time since Kandahar, a strange clarity settled over him. He wasn't just a husband cleaning up a broken marriage anymore. He was a soldier stepping into an operation. And Becky, whether she knew it or not, was standing right in the middle of enemy ground. The FBI field office smelled faintly of burnt coffee and paper. Nathan sat across from Agents Patel and Donovan, his evidence spread neatly across the table. Bank statements, forged refinance documents, screenshots of Becky's texts, and the security footage James had recorded. Agent Patel leaned forward, tapping one of the pages. This is bigger than just your wife, Sergeant Briggs. Jeremy Ryan and Daniel Spencer have been on our radar. You're the missing link we needed. Nathan's jaw tightened. How many families? Donovan flipped through a file. At least 11 military households across 3 states. Same pattern. Spouse alone. Financial manipulation. Fraudulent refinancing. Undervalued sales. Jeremy identifies the targets, Spencer moves the houses. They split the profits. Nathan sat back, pulse steady but heavy. 11 families. Men and women serving overseas while their lives at home were gutted. He wasn't just staring at betrayal anymore, he was staring at a predatory network. What about Becky? He asked quietly. Patel and Donovan exchanged a look. Donovan finally said, her level of involvement is unclear. She could be complicit, or she could have been manipulated. Either way, she forged your name. That's a crime. The question is, do you want her prosecuted? Nathan looked down at his hands. Calloused, scarred, steady. Hands that had carried rifles, hauled wounded brothers out of fire, signed his life to the army again and again. Hands that had once worn a wedding ring he no longer felt. I want justice, he said at last. But I want it clean. No loopholes. No half measures. Patel nodded. Then here's what we'll do. We let them keep talking. We let them think the sale's still on. We record everything. And when they try to move, she snapped her fingers, we close the net. That evening, Nathan parked 2 blocks from his old house again, phone in hand. Through the security feed, he watched Jeremy pacing the living room, Spencer scrolling through documents on his tablet. Becky sat on the couch, arms folded, eyes darting between them. List it by the end of the week, Spencer was saying. Buyers lined up. Cash, as usual. What about the husband? Jeremy asked. Spencer scoffed. He won't fight it. Military guys never do. Too much pride. They just sign the papers and disappear. Nathan hit record. His face in the darkened car window didn't smile. Didn't flinch. Didn't soften. The trap was closing. And for the first time since Becky's email in Kandahar, Nathan felt the faintest flicker of something close to satisfaction. The black SUVs came just after noon. From his vantage point 2 blocks away, Nathan watched as the quiet street outside his old house erupted into flashing lights and federal agents in windbreakers. Jeremy was the first out, shoved against the hood of his own truck, wrists locked in steel. He tried to protest, but an agent pressed his face flat against the metal. Spencer followed, yanked from the front door mid-sentence, still holding a folder of listing papers. His polished salesman's smile cracked into panic as cuffs clicked shut around his wrists. Nathan's phone buzzed. Agent Patel's voice was crisp on the other end. We've got them on tape, Sergeant. Conspiracy, wire fraud, forgery, attempted property theft. It's airtight. Nathan's eyes shifted back to the house. Becky stood frozen on the lawn, hands covering her mouth, watching her world implode in real time. Papers scattered across the grass as agents carried out boxes of evidence, financial ledgers, laptops, forged documents. Luna barked inside, pacing anxiously behind the window. Patel's voice softened. Your wife's here. We'll need to question her. Do you want to be present? Nathan stayed silent for a long moment, staring at Becky. 13 years condensed into that image, her shaking shoulders, her hollow eyes, the woman who had once promised forever now unraveling under the weight of her own choices. No, he said finally. This isn't between her and me anymore. It's between her and the truth. When he hung up, he didn't drive away immediately. He just sat there, engine off, rain beginning to fall. He remembered Kandahar, the dust storms, the adrenaline, the brotherhood of men who never broke their word. And then he looked back at Becky, who had traded all of it for a man in his sweatshirt and a forged signature. For the first time, Nathan realized he didn't feel anger anymore. Just finality. Hours later, James called. FBI's processing the case. Becky's being questioned. Jeremy and Spencer won't be seeing daylight anytime soon. It's done, Nate. Nathan exhaled, leaning back against the seat. Done. The word felt foreign, unfinished, like the pause before an entirely new chapter. But one thing was certain, the battlefield had shifted. And Nathan Briggs had survived. The courtroom was quieter than Nathan expected. No grand speeches, no dramatic confrontations, just the slow grind of justice. Jeremy Ryan took a plea deal, 8 years for fraud, conspiracy, and identity theft. Daniel Spencer followed with 12, his empire of quick cash sales dismantled. Becky sat at the defense table only once. She didn't wear defiance, only exhaustion. Her lawyer argued she'd been manipulated, strung along by Jeremy's promises, too blind, or too willing, to see the crime in front of her. Nathan didn't testify against her. He didn't need to. The evidence spoke for itself. In the end, Becky signed a settlement, full restitution of the stolen funds, forfeiture of any claim to the house or Nathan's pension, and a written confession about the forged refinance. In exchange, he let her walk without charges. No victory dance. No revenge speech. Just clean, cold closure. The divorce decree arrived 6 months to the day after that email in Kandahar. No fault. Irretrievable breakdown. The language of bureaucracy masking the ashes of 13 years. When Agent Patel called him afterward, her tone carried a trace of warmth. Your case helped us tie it all together. Those other families, Navy, Air Force, Army, they'll see restitution because of you. Nathan stood on the porch of his rental apartment, staring at the fading light over Spokane. Good, he said simply. Life didn't return to normal. It rebuilt, piece by deliberate piece. A year later, he sold the house he could no longer stand to live in, putting the past behind him brick by brick. With the money, he bought a cabin in Montana, 2 bedrooms, a creek out back, 10 acres of silence where betrayal couldn't reach. He retired early, after 20 years in uniform. Enough was enough. The army had given him purpose, but it had also taken. Now he wanted something no one could forge, steal, or gamble away. He named his new German Shepherd Scout. Spent his days shaping wood into furniture for neighbors, the smell of sawdust replacing the smell of gun oil. At night, he sat on the porch with a beer, listening to the creek. Every now and then, Becky's name would appear on his phone. Short messages. I never meant for things to end this way. He never replied. There was nothing left to say. One evening, a letter arrived from a woman in Fort Worth. Her husband was Navy, deployed when Jeremy and Spencer tried to strip her life bare. You don't know me, she wrote, but you saved our home. Thank you for fighting back when it would have been easier to walk away. Nathan pinned the letter to his refrigerator. Some nights, when the silence pressed too close, he read it again. A reminder that even betrayal can be turned into something larger than pain. Jeremy and Spencer were behind bars. Becky was gone. The battlefield was finally quiet. And for the first time in years, Nathan Briggs was building something that was entirely, irrevocably, his own.